Okay, cool.
And me.
Yeah, Lynn, yes.
Yes.
Um,
Yep.
the just to give you guys a brief background of where we came from and I think why we're able to be experts in our field. So we actually started in 1855,
Wow.
and it was originally men that were getting out of the war that needed a job, and they went and sold Bibles door to door. And it's actually called Southwestern because at the time, so our company's headquarters is in Nashville, Tennessee. Well, at the time, that was the southwesternmost portion part of the country. And so,
I love
yeah,
that's just awesome.
yeah. So we've done this for a bit now. The consulting, training, coaching division that I work with, we've been doing that for about 20 years now. And so it's basically taking all the principles, concepts, ideas, and helping to inject that into the world. And so that's what we do. And at the end of at the end of the day, this is our focus. And our mission and kind of the reason why we exist is honestly, guys, to help elevate the practice and perception of sales all around the world. And I think one of the reasons the folks that we've had a chance to partner with, one of the reasons they hit their goals is the habits we're able to help them create. Because if you guys think about it, a lot of the things that you had mentioned as far as areas of opportunity, they do revolve around habits. I will also say how you do anything is how you do everything. What I mean by that, how you're showing up in your personal life bleeds into your professional life. If you've created new habits where you're getting up early, you're working out, you're eating right, guys, that helps us with our mindset in work. And if we're procrastinating, maybe cleaning out our garage, there's a good chance we're procrastinating cleaning out our pipeline. And so there's a lot of stuff that it bleeds into. So it's not just about elevating sales, but it's also about elevating leadership. And at the end of the day, it's elevating our lives. And so that's our focus, is how do we improve in these areas and grow. And we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. I don't want to take too much time for this, but I do think it's important, even just for today alone. You don't have to share them out loud, but I'd love for you guys just to jot down what is your goal for, I don't care if it's for the year, if it's for the quarter, if it's personal, if it's professional. I just want you guys to write down one goal for yourselves. If it's a AUM goal, if you're a financial advisor, if it's number of listings or number of sides, if you're a realtor, if it's onboarding or hiring a new person, if it's, a number of networking meetings, you just whatever that goal is, go ahead and jot that down, because a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, if you have something to relate it to, it makes everything that I'm talking about more realistic for you to be able to grasp onto. You guys with me?
Yep.
Okay. So, and it's always funny when we think about this idea of goals, because a lot of the things, I hear this quite a bit, this idea they're like, oh, I want to do, and not to dog on your guys' goals if you wrote this down, but I hear quite a bit that this idea that I want to do better than last year. Great. Is that $1 better? Is that 100,000 better? Like, what does that actually mean? And so I think, especially in a world right now with so many things outside of our control, we need to take a step back and pause and focus on what are those things that we actually have control over. And I hear this from leaders quite a bit, guys. I hear leaders that tell me like, man, Will, my agents, my advisors, my reps, they're just so lazy. I don't think we wake up and decide to want to be lazy. I think realistically, what tends to happen is that we're just unfocused. And so if you think about, oh, I'm struggling with time management, or I'm struggling reaching out to people, well, maybe this is a good opportunity to create some intentional focus around what it is that you're doing to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. So when it comes to, there's a couple of things that I want to touch on. Like part of what we're going to dig into, guys, is mindset related. The other part is going to be a little bit more technical and having a chance to dive in and just touch on a couple skill set areas. We kind of talk about this idea of like will versus skill. Um, and so when it comes to this idea of what is it that top producers are doing, and we've had a chance, we've worked with a lot of people in our years, close to probably a little over 23,000 now. There's a few things that top producers are doing. And so I think it's relevant if we're thinking about especially your goal, what are the controllable things that we can be working on? And so if you think about this, of course, in our business, we need to work on our skills. And so skills, what I mean by skills is like within the sales realm, like closing skills, answering objections, getting quality referrals, getting a little bit better in some of these areas can make a big difference. My challenge and question to you guys is right now with everything going on, when was the last time that you took the time to actually hone in on your skill set and it was your decision? Because I've worked with a lot of the companies that you guys have mentioned that are actually on here, and there's typically, especially, and I don't know if you guys are like, I don't know if any of you on here are like within the first year, but you typically get a lot of initial training. But it either drops off or we get complacent or we don't make it our own. And so this is just one controllable area we can be focusing on to get a little closer to honing our skill set and making it happen. So that's the first piece in the triangle of skills. The second is motivation. Motivation is one of those things that you either have it or you don't, right? Is it though? Like I'm sure some of you guys have woken up and you're incredibly excited to get after it and you high five your partner on the way out to work, and then there's other days that you wake up and you're like, oh, I got to deal with this, and this, and this, and this. And so I don't think motivation should be one of those rah, rah, you got this. Motivation should really be getting clear on your vision and creating a game plan around it. There's this concept that our endurance in life, our endurance in work, our endurance in life is directly tied to the clarity of our vision. I'll give you a good example. Anybody runners on here? Anybody like running?
Yeah, and rowing.
Rowing? Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but running too.
Running too. Nelson, you raised your hand. That's great. Like 5Ks, 10Ks, are you crazy like ultra, or is it just like kind of weekend warrior, like getting out there and just when you do
Right.
have a chance?
Right now I run with my dog, but in the past I used to do marathons. So,
Okay.
but didn't do over that. Just 26.2 was enough.
Love it. So I've joked that it doesn't matter who it is. If, you know, if I picked you, Becky, and I said, hey, I'm showing up at your place, we're going on a run. Well, you're a coachable person. You'll probably, okay, sure. How far are we going? And it's like, doesn't matter. Let's go. Well, eventually you guys are going to be like, I got to go home. I got work to do. I got stuff going on. Well, if you came to me and said, hey, I'm training for a half marathon or I'm training for a 5K, it's like, okay, great. This is a distance we're going on the first day. This is where we're going, and this is how we're going to get there. Your ability to push through that is that much higher because there's a plan around it. There's a vision for the future.
Oh, that's so true.
If we're not excited about the future, we're dying in the present. So that's the second piece, is you got to have the mindset. Third is systems. Guys, systems, that's time management, that's work-life balance, that's how you structure your pipeline, that's how you deal with past clients, that's how you deal with follow-up. And I see this quite a bit. People that are really good communicators are really good at getting in front of their clients, but they're not the most organized. And so myself being one of them, their biggest area of opportunity is the systems piece. And so for you, just kind of a self-reflection, if you were to work on one of those areas, skills, motivation, or systems, what would you want to improve on? And the last piece is, guys, right smack dab in the middle, it's habits. Because unless we develop the right habits, none of what I'm talking about matters. Because realistically, unless you develop the habit of implementation, what's going to happen 2 weeks from today? Because honestly, I'm sure you guys have been to tons of trainings and, you have some great leaders where, they'll fill you in and help support you. And, I've been there. You go to a conference and you're like, oh, that's good. Let me write that down. But unless we're actually putting it into practice and creating the habit of implementation, we don't change. And so again, just area of opportunity for you. If you were to take away one thing that you'd want to improve on, what would it be? And because at the end of it, in order to grow in any of your goals that you wrote down is we need accountability. And that's what we do. It's kind of like, so I studied nutrition and fitness in school. That was one of my degrees. I could put together a pretty good workout program. In fact, most of you guys could. It's called Chat GPT. It's out there. It's really easy to find.
Yeah.
But just because I have a really good program doesn't mean that I'm going to be in the gym at 5:30 in the morning. I need to have a personal trainer. That's what we do, is personal training for our business. And if we're honest with ourselves, if you had a little bit more accountability, would you be a little closer to your goals? And so we're going to dive in and we're going to talk about some areas of what top performers and top producers in all industries are doing. And that being said, I'm sure you guys would all agree with me that you can't change your habits around your business in a little under an hour, just like you can't lose weight or put on muscle by going to your personal trainer once. Obviously, that's why coaching exists. So if something rings true to you, cool, we can have a conversation after this. And if it doesn't, that's totally okay too. And Lynn, I think you came in with a very realistic perspective is, hey, if I can take one or two nuggets of information and implement and utilize that, that is a win in my book.
Right.
That's my goal for all of you is if you can take one nugget, if there's one thing that I said, rock and roll, go do that. And if you want to have a conversation after, awesome, I'll be here. So to pivot, there's 3 habits of top producers, and this is in any and all industries. I think this is really incredibly important, especially with what the market's doing in the last week or so. As top producers, they find a way, not an excuse. And we're all really good at coming up with excuses, aren't we? And it's funny because a lot of the time it sounds the same. Well, the reason that I'm not hitting my goals is because the market stinks, or I'm too new, or I'm too old, or I just don't understand X, Y, and Z, or social networking is tough for me, or whatever it is. Because we all have that little person that sits on our shoulder and whispers those rationalizations in our ear all day long. We like to call that little person Mr. Mediocrity, or Mr. M for short. Because realistically, that's what they are. It is rationalizations. And if you look at that word rationalizations, you can actually break it down to rationalizations. Because they're lies, aren't they? Is there anything that little person on your shoulder can tell you to help make you happier, more successful, make you more money? No. And this is absolutely a self-reflection here as well. Like, guys, do you think top producers hear that voice too?
Of course.
100%. But they believe in the saying, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And sometimes they're knocking off that little person off their shoulder up to 200 times a day. And so my challenge to you guys, and I'd love it from a standpoint of communication, but what has that been for you? What has been that excuse or that thing that's getting in your head that's holding you back? And I'd love it if you guys text me. And it's awesome because I see things across the board. It's I don't have enough time. I have been there before. I will probably have that excuse in some capacity come September, October, because our wife is pregnant with number 2. And it's very easy to say I don't have enough time, or I'm tired, or whatever that may be, right? That is a thing. So take some time, jot that down, shoot me a text, and hold on to that. We're going to come back to what it is that you're running into. The second piece, guys, habits of top producers is they're students of their game. They're students of their game. So I'm curious. Let's do Patricia. What is being a student? I'm not going to ask you a hard question. What does being a student of the game mean for you? And make sure you unmute yourself.
Being a student of the game, what does it mean for me? Just for me, it's reaching out to people and creating connections.
Love it. Yeah. So constantly getting in front of others.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels really good because I just reflected a date yesterday of in the dollar store.
Yeah. Hey, that's great. Great opportunity to connect. One of my favorite sayings around this, guys, Jim Rohn, he said, a formal education will make you a living. A self-education will make you a fortune.
Oh.
And I think that's really true. This idea of growth is key. And I remember Adrienne Bonzi. She was a realtor that we worked with. She was out of Newburgh, and she worked for Kelly Real Estate. You guys may have heard of them in Newburgh. And I remember she'd wanted to have a conversation with me. She sat down, we were talking about coaching, and I was like, Adrienne, have you ever had a coach before? And she goes, yeah, I have one right now. And this was early on in my career. And so in my brain, I was kind of like, so why are we meeting? Right? It's kind of like if you're having a conversation with a potential client as a realtor and they're like, yeah, I work with a realtor right now. You're kind of like, what's the point of the conversation? And it was interesting because she's like, yeah, well, my coach is really good at big picture stuff, but I need to be held accountable to my day-to-day stuff. I'm getting complacent. I need to be more intentional with my activity. And I thought that was really powerful because she was already one of the top realtors in the city of Newburgh. I know Newburgh's not huge, but still. And so whenever you look at what it is that you feel like being a student of the game is, and if you reflect back to your biggest area of opportunity, guys, how many books are out there literally specifically written for the challenge that you're running into right now? And if there's so many books, why is it that we still have those excuses and we still run into those challenges? And I think part of it bleeds into habit number 3. Top producers, guys, they take action. And so we're going to touch a little bit on the time management stuff, but I think it's key. If you guys were to rate yourself on a scale 1 to 10, somebody that's a 10 in taking action, they're proactive, they're not reactive, they have a game plan, they know how to execute, they know their goals, and they take action on it. Somebody that's a 1 or a 2, you might have some general ideas as far as what you want to do, but Monday morning comes rolling around, and all of a sudden we're putting out fires and running this way and that and wondering why we're not a little closer to our goals. So I'll give you guys a second. Where would you rate yourself? And my question to you guys is, if you're not a 10 most days, what is that costing you? And again, I said what now, how much, right? Because again, for some of us, it's paying off my car loan, or it's buying that vacation property that I've wanted, or it's, investing X, Y, and Z. But for others, I've been there. It's guilt. It's that guilty feeling that we have inside because it's 7 or 8 o'clock at night. We're sitting there on our laptops, like trying to knock something out, and something that we wanted to try to get done that day, but for whatever reason we didn't. And our spouse or our kids are like, get off that thing. Can't that wait? Can't you do it later? Obviously, that's not the intention, but we sometimes run into that. And so my question is for you guys, what do you feel like the most expensive and visible cost in business is today? What are your guys' thoughts? Michelle Groves, I'd love to pick on you just because your face is closest to where I see you.
Right there. Um,
Most expensive
Most
and visible
expensive
costs.
to me, it feels like that time suck. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I put a lot of time in every day, and some days you walk away and you say, I feel like I tried to work hard, but you know, why didn't I get more done or whatever? So learning to improve those skills so I can do stuff faster, to set up the system so every time I do something, I'm not relearning the game. And what was the other piece of it? The motivation. I mean, I'm sure the more success you have, the more that self motivation maybe kicks in a bit of, hey, I'm doing well. But if you're newer to the game and you feel like you're getting a lot of no's, sometimes that motivation is kind of like, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
So trying to keep motivated even though it's been a tough couple of years, and how do we keep so I think for me it's learning how to best use my time
Yeah, I love it.
in what will bring me the most results.
Well, and one thing that just to speak into what you said, as far as like getting motivated when you have results, that's a slippery slope. And
Mhm.
so my challenge, especially to all of you, is we want to make sure that we're putting our confidence in our activity, not our results. If we're putting our
Yeah.
confidence on our results, it's really easy to feel really bad when our sales aren't up. Well, guess what? We can't control that.
Mhm.
The other piece of this is, when we think about the most expensive invisible cost in business, I joke it rhymes with procrastination. We like to call it creative avoidance. And I don't know if you guys can relate to that. I have a good buddy of mine that's in real estate, and case in point, right? Monday morning, he drops his car off at the car shop because he needs to get some new tires, and he gets to his office and gets dropped off, and you sit down at your computer. Well, what's the first thing you check?
Emails.
Yeah, your emails, and you got a voicemail, and so you start handling that and taking care of that, and then you got a voicemail from the tire shop, and all of a sudden the tires are more expensive than you thought they were going to be. And so what do? Well, you're Googling it and trying to find another deal and calling your neighbor because he works on cars, and eventually you get that taken care of, and and realistically it's been a couple hours, and you're like, okay, well, I got to go pick up my car. Let me run a couple errands before I get back to the office. I got to pick up some signs, and let me get lunch. And you get back to your desk and then sit down. What's the first thing you check? Well, emails and voicemails and ESPN. And all of a sudden it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we haven't touched the most important task that we need to get done that day. Guys, can you relate to that?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
That is creative avoidance. And so one of the things that we run into and dig into is this concept called the law of diminishing intent. And the law of diminishing intent, or LODI, is basically that our intention to do something over time is naturally going to diminish. I mean, case in point, you look at New Year's resolutions, come March or April, those people aren't in the gym anymore. They've given up on it. And guys, you know what's crazy is this happens to us, right? I'll use real estate, for example. Let's say, Kim, you have a conversation with somebody as far as, purchasing a new home, and for whatever reason, they may not be, ready to go right at this very moment. Well, maybe we're not as intentional as we should have been as far as following up with them. And all of a sudden, 2 or 3 months go by, and you see your house, their house go up for sale, and you're like, what the heck did I do wrong? Well, a lot of the time, this literally happened to us and to them. They have a really good conversation with you, like, this is great, this is awesome. And then 3 months go by and they're not thinking about it. And their cousin's like, hey, I just got my real estate license. And they're like, okay, cool. And if we don't like it when it happens to us, Why do we do it to ourselves? And so one of the big things that we work on when it comes to time management is actually building out what we call an ideal schedule. And I will beat you guys to the punch. A lot of people that I talk to, it's like, well, Will, I can't put together an ideal schedule. I don't know when this is going to happen or that's going to happen. And that's true. But guys, there are two things that are always going to be consistent when it comes to our schedule. The first is if we don't know what a perfect week looks like, we're never going to have one. And the second is if we're not actively building in income producing activities into our calendar, we're not actively growing our business. And so this is an example. Please, please, please do not think this is how you build success. This guy is his name's Chad Goldwasser. He was at the time the #1 Keller Williams real estate agent in the entire country. He sold like 543 homes or something stupid like that. He had a team. So he didn't do it all himself, but this was his schedule. This is what he operated off of. And all you realtors that are on here, no, this is never going to be exactly what his week looks like. Of course, there's going to be things that get in the way and change and all that. But he had intentional prospecting time in his calendar. I will also speak into this. I didn't coach Chad, so I don't know why he only had dinner twice a week. I don't know if that's like a fasting thing or something like that, but really big into boat entertaining. I thought that was always fun. But people are like, well, I can't do that. I'm like, great. Your name's not Chad. This is not your schedule. And so that is one thing that I challenge you guys to do is build out an ideal schedule. And that is also one thing that we pride ourselves in doing with our clients is helping you build what an ideal schedule is for you and then doing our best to execute it. This is just a simple example of one of my weeks. This was years ago, but this was an example of what I was building out. And my ideal schedule is coaching calls on Wednesdays and Fridays. Bless you. And if you see the purple, there's some coaching times on Monday. There's one coaching call on Thursday. It's not going to be perfect, but we at least know what we're trying to do to execute. And I also had important things for me. Quads and hams and like I had my workouts because it was intentional. I needed to plan it out. Otherwise, if I just based things on how I felt whenever I woke up in the morning, more often than not, I'm probably not working out. And so this is just a simple example of what it looks like. Before I move on, and I apologize, I should have prefaced this. Any questions, anything that stood out, anything that you guys want to ask me about, reinforce, or even challenge me on?
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
What about breaks and like transition time? I don't really, I
100%.
haven't seen that in any of the calendars really that you've shown, like a little bit here,
Yep.
but like for ADHD folks that need that, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, and I think it's different for everyone. I think some people, especially depending on, I don't want to get too in the weeds on this, but depending on if you're more of a morning person, like, eat the frog, get the challenges done first in the morning. From a break standpoint, I think it is important to recognize, and everybody's a little different as far as like, we call them energy units, like how many energy units do you have and like how many times do you need to take breaks throughout the day? The other thing that I'll mention is, especially when it comes to like, we do work with loan officers. My question typically to people in that industry is about how many, and again, our goal is to avoid fires and prevent them, but how many fires are you putting out on a daily basis? And on average, if you have about 2 hours of fires that you put, that you tend to handle, and again, a fire could just be clients are calling, then we build flex time into our ideal schedule. That way we're not overstretching ourselves, and we actually have time that if 10 o'clock gets moved or blown up because we're dealing with a client situation, then I know from 2 to 4, I have that open space that I can shift that time. So I think breaks are absolutely important. I have to give myself and this actually is breaks, those 15-minute slots in between calls, my coach would say I just need to do a better job of actually giving those 15-minute breaks instead of going to the top of the hour. That's my challenge. But did that help? Did that answer your question?
Oh, totally. I appreciate you addressing that and kind of talking about different ways of thinking about it.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Cool.
Will, I think it can be really easier too to put stuff like this in if you're working from home. I'm at home. My wife works from home, so on her breaks we walk through we live in a condo community. We walk.
Mhm.
So you're getting outside, you're getting exercise, you're stretching out, you're getting fresh air, you're seeing neighbors. So it's a great way to take a break. It doesn't have to be a long break. Just make sure
Totally.
you're doing it and you come in refreshed.
Yep. I mean, again, you can create a break in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I've taken a 5-minute nap before. And, again, it's how are you being intentional with what the day is giving you and how you decide to react to it. And so these are kind of the 3 habits. And I'd love to know, guys, just like out of these 3, which one resonated with you? Is it find a way, not an excuse? I need to do a better job of that. Is it, man, it's been a while since I've worked on myself. It's definitely being a student of the game. Or is it, I know what I'm supposed to do. I just need to take action on it. So I'm curious for you guys. Would love it if you text me, or even if one of you guys wants to shout it out and actually speak it into existence. What's the area of opportunity, or what resonated the most with you? Let's see, Tracy, what about you?
Well, I seem to get more done when I just take the attitude of just do it now. Just do it.
Just do it now. Yeah, I love it.
It's like that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Boom. That
Yeah.
book, Mel Robbins book or whatever.
Oh,
Yeah.
Robin, yeah.
That helped kind of kick me out of going, well, I'm gonna snooze. I'm gonna go do this and I'll do it later. Or it just sort of knocked me off of doing that. And if I just also, especially if I don't think about it, because if it's something that makes me nervous, but I'm okay doing it, but I get nervous about things sometimes. It's
Yeah.
also just not thinking about the nervous and just going, go over there, other nervous things bugging me, and just go do it,
Yeah. There's a concept that fear actually can be broken down into an acronym: false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
And if we can take action on things, it makes it that much easier to push through. So I love it.
That and shining the light on it too sometimes helps, because you shine the light on it and it always looks bigger in the dark.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's awesome. So I'm going to keep this simple. I'm going to touch on the next topic, and maybe Becky, we could do another one of these and spend a little bit more time on the technical stuff.
Oh, sure.
I won't go into a whole lot of details with all these, but especially because, again, most of us on here are in some sort of sales or growth role. I like comparing sales to golf. Anybody like golfing on here? It's okay if you don't. Tracy?
A little bit, sometimes.
Okay.
A little bit. Just out of curiosity, do you guys know how many golf how many clubs are in a professional bag?
Mm-mm.
No.
There's 14.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So why do we have so many different clubs? What's the purpose behind them?
Each have their own little purpose.
Yeah. Different shots, different situations. And it's funny because if you look at I would assume that all of you guys are professionals. You would consider yourself a professional on here. I feel like I'm a professional most days. And so if you look at a professional golfer, guys, if there's one club that they're remotely bad in, what are they doing on a daily basis?
Working that club.
Yeah, they're practicing, right?
Yep.
And so as I touch on some of these, and for time's sake, I'm not going to go into full details on all of them, but I'd love it. Pat yourself on the back and the things that you do pretty well, and maybe put a star by some of the areas that you could improve on. Because I see this quite a bit. I see people that are, especially in golf. Like golf, you see people that can smash the ball and they drive it forever, but then they get on the green and their short game sucks. Or vice versa. I'm really good at my putt, I'll dominate that all the time, but when I try to drive it, I always shank it off to the left. And so if you look at a professional salesperson, you see some people that are like social butterflies. They're good at talking to every single person, but then they're never asking for a meeting or asking for the business. Or on the opposite end, I've worked with advisors at like RBC and Northwestern Mutual, and for some of those guys, they're like, oh man, put somebody in the room, and 90% of the time I'm working with them, but their pipeline's empty, right? And so as we touch on some of this stuff, like recognize, and again, self-reflection here. What is the area of opportunity for you? So I'm going to keep this simple. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details on here, but I'm sure some of you guys have heard of this. Some of you guys, this might be a new concept, but when we think about sales, there's a name for each stage in what we call the cycle of a sale. And the first thing that you need is what we call pre-approach. Pre-approach is before I pick up the phone. So Michelle Elliott, if I'm giving you a referral and you're calling somebody, hey, reach out to this. Remind me, Michelle, real estate, payroll?
Bookkeeping and payroll.
Payroll. Okay. Let's say I give you somebody to call. What's some information you might want to know about them?
First and foremost, what type of business they have,
Yep.
how many employees,
Yeah.
which state they're in.
That's important.
Mm-hmm. If they've already got their books built.
Yeah.
Or if it's a cleanup project.
Yep.
And that
And I'll
goes
stop you there, and you're spot on there. My challenge to you and to everyone, because this is what everybody says, is does that serve them or does that serve us? They know how many employees they have. They know how big their business is. Like that's not a new thing for them. And so pre-approach, the way that we perceive this is if I'm reaching out to somebody, how can I connect with them on a deeper level compared to, hey, I know that you're looking for a 2-bedroom house. I know you're looking for a 4-bedroom house, or I know that you have a business X size. Pre-approach is learning and understanding, how do you know that person if it's a referral? It's also learning things like, hey, what are 1 or 2 fun facts about Becky that most people wouldn't know about them? Or, hey, what are 1 or 2 things that you really respect about Becky as a leader or as a business owner, right? Because that's a simple way of being able to connect with somebody on a deeper level. The second is approach. That's something ideally we're doing more than anything else, is having those initial conversations. And I would probably venture to guess that there's some people on here that there's certain personalities that you're like, oh, I love these personalities. I'll have conversations with them all day long. And then there's other personalities that you're like, if I could avoid talking to those types of people, that's not my favorite. Guys, do you know how many seconds it takes to make a good first impression?
3,
It's about 7.
7.
Now, depending on if they're basing it off of looks or they're, which people naturally do. Do you know how many meetings, keyword meetings, it takes to erase a bad first impression? It's about 7.
Yeah.
And so the intention here is, how do I connect with somebody initially right off the bat? And there's this concept that we call Navigate. There's a book, Navigate 2.0. It's selling the way that people want to buy. And it's very simply understanding the type of people that we're having conversations with. If I'm talking to a fighter, I need to get right to the point. If I'm talking to a detective, I need to be sharing details and answering their why questions. So understanding the type of person, that's one of the things that we dig into. The other piece, and Becky, that would be a really cool topic for everyone, is just actually going through the 4 buyer behavior styles. We could do a whole training on that.
Oh, yeah.
The second, or the third, is the introduction. The introduction is, Nelson, you guys might use the word like a fact finder, discovery, needs analysis. That's asking questions. That's learning more information about the individual. And then, of course, the presentation is sharing, hey, this is Megan, like when you're talking about Edward Jones, here's the value. I'm very familiar with Edward Jones because being in St. Louis, that's your guys' headquarters. Beautiful building, by the way. But that's the presentation is this is what we do. This is how we're able to help people. Now, if I was to ask most salespeople between the introduction and the presentation, what's more important, what would you guys say? Is it the presenting or is it asking questions?
Questions.
Absolutely. The sale is made, the sale is won or lost before you've ever presented anything. They need to like you. They need to feel like you're going to take care of them. And that comes from the introduction. And if you were to look at most sit down presentations by a salesperson or an advisor, they spend most of their time on, let me show you what we do great. That is not how we move the needle. After the presentation, of course, is the close. That's, that's asking for the business. And I repeat, it is asking for the business. I think a lot of the time, especially in this industry, we don't want to come across as what?
Pushy.
Right? Yeah. Well, you guys got to remember, if our goal is to go from point A to point B and help the person make a decision, Kim, if you have a potential listing and they're just sitting on the fence and they can't make a decision on which realtor to work with, you're not serving them. And so helping them make a decision, it's literally just going from point A to point B. And so that's another fun topic. We go over like 15 different closing questions to help somebody
Wow.
move to, to make a decision. That doesn't mean that you need to like all 15. It means you need to find 5 that are really good. Because how we can come across as pushy is if we have the same closing question that we ask, and that's the only question that we go to.
Right.
So having different ways of asking these questions is key. Of course, we're going to run into objections. That's fun things like feel, felt, found, and third-party verification stories. That's all kinds of fun things that we dig into. And then the last thing that we don't want to make sure to forget is referrals.
Oh,
Yep.
Guys, referrals, that's the lifeblood of at least my business is referrals. And I would assume a lot of you guys, it works a lot of the same way. It's word of mouth. It's getting connected from other clients of yours. And I'm curious for all of you, if referrals is something that you guys work on. In the last 10 meetings that you had, how many of you guys asked for an introduction in all 10 meetings? How about in 5?
Oh, yeah.
1 or 2? Yeah, okay.
At least half. At least half. Yeah.
At least half. I love it, Lynn. Guys, that is the lifeblood of our business. And so we can't be shy about getting introduced to people and like referrals. Again, there's a lot of head trashes. I don't want to be pushy either on that. And so, yeah, that's the cycle of sales. And so again, if there was 1 or 2 areas you'd want to improve on, what would that be? And I'll let you guys kind of think about that for a sec, but I'm going to transition here and we're going to spend 4 minutes on this part, but I would actually love it. We're going to do a fun exercise. I'd love a volunteer. The volunteer, I'm not going to have you do anything crazy. All I'll have you do, Megan, I love it. Thank you. So I'll have Megan take herself off mute, and what I'll have everybody else do. So Megan, you're just going to read what's on the screen out loud. It's really simple. It's like 1 sentence. And I want everybody else to count the number of F's that you hear. So the letter F, all you're doing is counting the F's. You guys with me? I'm not going to keep it on the screen for very long, but Megan, you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Let's go.
Finished files are the result of years of scientific study combined with the experience of many years.
Okay. With your guy's hand, I want you to hold up how many F's you saw. Okay, I got 3. Kim, I got 6.
I got
I got 2. There's another 6. It's easier when we're on Zoom. You guys are just having your finger up there. It's funny because you see kind of a whole bunch of things. I saw a 2 all the way up to 6. And what's crazy is we've been doing this thing called reading for most of our adult lives, and we see a variation there. And just so you guys are aware, Kim and there was somebody else. I think Michelle, you may have gotten it.
Oh,
There are 6.
1, 2. Oh, wow. Okay. I said 3. Yeah. Ha.
wow. Wow. Yep.
Yeah.
We tend to miss the ofs because our
Ofs.
brain
I
Yep.
missed
skips
all
over
of
them.
the
Big time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I read
That's a
over
very-
the little tiny words. Yep.
Yeah. That's pretty normal. Yeah, that's a normal thing for us to do.
And I do a
Uh,
lot with typography, and I missed all 3 of.
I guess I'm not going to make it as a proofreader.
There you go. That was my worst subject in school was English, and my mom was an English professor, so she
Oh,
tried to
geez.
let that down. But
Yeah.
my point here, guys, is if we have blind spots and simple things like that, there's probably a few blind spots in our business.
Yeah.
And so I'll keep this really simple. If you see all these people on the screen, what do they all have in common?
Sports champions.
They're
Winners.
champions, they're winners,
Athlete.
they're
Athletes.
athletes. Some people would say they're goats. They're the greatest of all time. Messi's even holding a goat. I thought that was clever. They all have coaches.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
One of my favorite documentaries was The Last Dance, and Michael Jordan, he had Tim Grover, he had Phil Jackson, he had multiple people. And so again, I'm going to spend a little bit of time. I'm just going to touch on what it looks like. And guys, this stuff isn't rocket science. If something that I touched on is like, cool, I want to explore this, awesome, happy to have a conversation. If it isn't, you can kind of tone this out. That's totally okay. There's obviously a few reasons why people decide to get coaching. The first is it increases your income. I'll keep it simple. On average, the people we work with, they raise their income by 46% over the course of a year. That's their income. Now there's specific reasons why it is so high, and it is the type of people that we do decide to work with. But the second, guys, is they're able to multiply their time. Now we can't create time, but we can be more intentional with the time that we do have. And that is a big part of what it is that we dig into and work on creating. And the last piece is really simply just being able to grow in your confidence. I can't touch on this enough. If you go to a personal trainer, a nutritionist, you're going to gain confidence in learning how to take care of your body. That's naturally going to happen. You just have to be willing to fail and get after and try things. And so again, what it is that we do, this is one-on-one. This is a call specifically with your personal coach. We have over 130 coaches around the world. Every single person that we work with is paired with an individual coach. This is not a call 1, you talk about this, call 2, you talk about this. It doesn't go in any sequential order. It just goes in the order that's most relevant to you to help you get the results that you're looking for. And there's online content in between. I had an advisor that emailed me once. He was out in Michigan, and he's like, Will, I'm digging these bathroom videos. I emailed him back, and I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, this guy was like 25. He's like, they're long enough to where I get good content, but they're short enough to where my legs don't fall asleep. I'm like, great. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So there is content in between. And then the last piece is just what we call critical success factors. All that is reverse engineering your goals and figuring out what it is that you need to do on a daily or weekly basis. And we have the ability to help track that with you. So when you're jumping on with your coach, you actually have numbers to be able to base things off of. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we have seen success, and also one of the reasons that this isn't for everyone. Because realistically, in order to be successful in coaching, you have to be coachable. You have to be willing to do things outside of your comfort zone. You have to be committed, not for life, but for 12 months to learn and grow. It's not a huge time commitment in the grand scheme of things. It is an emotional commitment to work on being the best version of yourself. You got to be willing to change. And guys, change sometimes sucks. But what I will say is, in order to get something different, you have to be willing to do something different. And if the next step isn't a little bit of a scary step, it's probably not a step in the right direction. Most of you guys work in some capacity where you're commission or bonused. you had to make that decision to jump into a role where that is the case. And so again, you gotta be willing to change. So I'll keep this simple, guys, and I'm not gonna, if this is something that you want to explore, I'd want to make sure that it is a right fit for you and dig in and actually understand what your goals are and what you're trying to create. So I'll keep it really simple. It's not like, okay, who's in? Raise your hand. Like, no, this is a personal thing between you and you alone. And so what I'll have you guys do is I'd love for you to text me a 1, a 2, or a 3. And I'll explain what a 1, 2, or 3 means. A 1 is, Will, there's value. I'd like to explore what this would look like and just have a conversation. That is a 1. A 2 is, well, this is really great. I am a leader, or I would love to connect you with my leader, managing broker, managing director, whatever that is. And I'd love for you to come out and rock a workshop. And then a 3 is, hey, well, this is really great. Not for me. I'd love just to connect on social media and stay in touch there. I have a monster amount of friends in Portland and Vancouver, and I come to Portland quite often. So if that is doing something in person, rock and roll, I'd love to do that. I have many excuses to come out and visit. And so if it partners with spending time with you guys and helping to support, I'd love to be able to do that too. So I'd love it if you guys just go ahead and text a 1, 2, or 3. As a reminder, 1 is, Will, this is cool. I'd love to explore what this would look like for me. 2 is, this is great, Will, not for me, but I'd love to connect you with a leader, or I have some folks that you should have a conversation with. And then a 3 is, hey, not for me. I'd love to connect on LinkedIn or social media. So I'll keep it simple there. Would love to open it up to questions. If you guys have any or any takeaways, any things that resonated with you or things that you would want to work on. Becky, I'll throw it over to you. I know you've seen some of these in the past. You've seen different iterations of this. I guess for you, what resonated?
What didn't? Yeah, because my life has changed, as you can imagine. 5 years of, since COVID hit, and one thing that you say, if we don't know what the law of diminishing intent, and if we don't know, and I didn't catch it, I wanted to write it down because that really resonated with me.
The perfect week one. If you don't know what a perfect week looks like, you'll never have one. That one.
No, it was after that.
See, law of diminishing intent. Our intention to do something over time is going to diminish.
Right. And then if we don't know what it schedule, oh no, it was the perfect week. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah, that was, and I remembered before you doing the schedules, and I just thought, oh, it just looked like gibberish to me, kind of. But today it really hit home.
Good.
So, and I realized I'm not scheduling myself, very vaguely scheduling. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, happy to connect with you guys after, and Becky, happy to do another fun one of these.
I would love to. Yeah.
Focus on like one specific topic, but yeah, if you guys want to have another conversation, rock and roll, happy to do that. And if not, if you guys were able to take some ideas, rock and roll, go use those ideas and get after it. But I appreciate spending some time with you guys. Let's see, it's 3:07. Many more opportunities to get after it and have a couple other conversations by the end of the day, and excited to go from there. Appreciate you all.
Thank you.
It's good to hear direct sales coaching, Will. Good stuff.
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you
I
so much,
appreciate it.
Will.
Thank you.
You're
Great
welcome.
information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to you guys.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Will.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.